for you today, and it's going to be about what do the great saints have to say about COVID and 2020 and the times that we're living through now. And I'm going to be basing this on the important timing of the year that we've been looking at, and actually quite a bit of that timing of the year I even talked about in my 2020 forecast. You could see this was actually my 2020 forecast that I expressed very clearly even last year, that this year 2020 was going to be front loaded with a lot of stuff. Look at these dates: March 22nd, 1st January 24th, Saturn enters Capricorn. March 22nd to May 4th, Mars is exalted in Capricorn. This is an important time. March 29, Jupiter enters. Then there's all three of them there. But anyway, you could see from the end of March through like May and like the middle of May, with these planets then going retrograde, the whole part of the year was really front loaded with all of these intense times: COVID, social upheavals and unrest and things like that, eclipse in Gemini. And so we've been going through so much, but what do the great saints have to say about what we've been going through? And in particular, I'm going to talk about, two saints in particular, as I say, who have really been transcendent figures. One of them is the great Guru Amma, who is my Sat Guru, and I'm going to be looking at a couple messages that she gave, and I'm going to be looking at the astrology behind them, on her message about COVID, also her message on Gurupurnima this year, and then also the great saint Sri Ravi Shankar and what he has said about COVID-19 when it first came out, and some things that happened, some incredible events that happened that really coincided with his programs, and the opportunities, and also his Gurupurnima message. And there's links below this video that you should check out that really land all of this home for you, so that you can understand what we're talking about when we are explaining. All of these links are already there. So the first thing that I want to talk about, though, is I want to explain, because people ask, what is a saint? How does someone qualify to be a saint or a Satguru, or like it's some kind of qualifications? Or why would we ever, listen to a being like, Amma or Gurudev or one of these great teachers? I want to show a quick video, and this is my Guru Amma, and this resurfaced after the recent death of these stupid pop-ups. The recent death of John Lewis. This video emerged where Amma met John Lewis. He was a congressman in the United States Congress, and I want to play this video, and it's very short. There won't be any sound. I'll just be kind of talking, but you'll see John Lewis. I'll give you a little foreshadowing. John Lewis meets Amma. It's actually in a hotel. It's a very mundane setting. It's a hotel ballroom, right? You see there's other people standing around, and John Lewis goes to hug Amma, and it's just kind of like, oh, okay, I'll hug her, okay. And you see it's kind of like a cordial, like kind of friendly thing. Amma's always friendly, but he's kind of friendly, like, going to hug her. And then within 10 seconds, John Lewis is bawling his eyes out. Watch the video, but you'll see what happens. This is a grown man who's like in his 70s, who's been around the world. He's met all kinds of people. He's been in all kinds of social situations, but literally 10 seconds, very close to Amma, and he's bawling his eyes out. Watch. Now you'll see, I'm going to back this up, but look, he's hugging her there, and you can see, now watch what happens. She gives him a little kiss. He starts bawling. Oh God, come here. He embraces him. Look, he starts crying. Amma sits down with him. Now again, why does this happen? Again, I want you to watch it again because it goes fast, especially the beginning. You can see his expression. It's very like friendly. Like I'll stop right there. Look, it's like, oh, okay. Oh, little hug. Okay. I heard about you. You hug people. Okay, let's hug. Again, little hug. Okay, that's nice. And it's real time. You see Big Swami standing there. Now, 10 seconds later, oh my God, bawling his eyes out. She's got to hug him. Now, again, why would this happen? This is a grown man. Why would he, why would he react that way? What's so compelling about this little woman in a white sari, hugging people? Why does this happen? Well, again, these are amazing beings that they have transcended what we would call our dualistic mind. John Lewis is used to meeting regular people that are maybe famous or whatnot, but he's not used to someone who is coming from this place of absolute like purity of heart. And what happens with these great gurus is they are resonant on this level that we're not even really aware of that is possible. This is a I just posted a link. This is a video that I wrote years ago that explains the guru is within, but are we within? And again, one of the things is that we notice a very different quality of these beings because, for example, with Amma, she sits in front of people and hugs them for like 15, 20 hours at a time without going to the bathroom or without taking care of herself. And again, we've just never seen this kind of, like, you haven't seen this kind of compassion and selfless love and tolerance and patience ever really in your life, unless you've been around it personally. And so this, this quality of consciousness and of a person's character is extremely unusual. And so what I want to talk about here today is what these amazing beings are saying about COVID. Because really, right now we're at a time where we're getting so much, like, I guess you would say, bad advice, and we're kind of spinning out on our own kind of devices. We've had this Rahu in this Rahu in Gemini and this Ketu in Sagittarius now since March of last year. And what it's been doing is it's been really kind of spinning us out on trying to find our own answers, kind of rejecting the things that we believed before. Again, it's really led to so much sort of like conspiratorial thinking and sort of ungroundedness. And in the midst of that, though, there's also such a great opportunity, especially now, to because we have Jupiter in Capricorn. If I bring up the chart now, okay, so bring up the chart now. This is the chart of now. Let me just make this. This is the chart of as I'm recording this on August 5th at 5 p.m. You can see that Jupiter is in Sagittarius, where it's very powerful. So it's really time for us to listen to the messages of the great gurus and the great teachers, instead of just spinning out on our own opinions and our own ideas. There's just so much, I see so much stress in the world now just because we're following, people who are not seeing the bigger picture. I will just tell you about Amma. Amma predicted in 2020, or I'm sorry, Amma predicted several years ago that 2020 would be very difficult. And in fact, I'm going to read her words here now. Or first, I want to show you this chart. Let me just show you the chart first. I have a few charts. These are the Gurupurnima messages. I put Amma's Gurupurnima message, but there's also Gurudevs Gurupurnima video that you should watch. But Amma's, I'm not Gurupurnima, COVID message. So this is Amma's COVID message on Saturn on March 23rd. You remember when I just showed you all of those dates, that time at the end of March and for the next couple months was going to be the most intense period of the year. You can see this is the chart for March 23rd. It was right before a new moon as well. So we were just about to start that new moon cycle in Pisces as well. And you see the sun and moon were together in Pisces, and we had Saturn, Mars. Mars had just gone into Capricorn. It was right near Saturn. They were right on top of each other. And here is what Amma said. Here is Amma's message that she said at that time. So Amma's message at that time was this. She said this. Amma knows my children are all living in fear of coronavirus. Amma's thinking of all of you and praying for you. This is a time when you have to exercise extreme caution and alertness. It's a time to respond with courage, self-control, and unity. Amma knows that my children are afraid, but fear is not helping now. What is needed is caution and alertness. Courage is the primary thing. With courage, you can overcome anything. So abandon fear and gather courage. The antivirus that can kill the virus is courage. Courage is our mind's antivirus. If you befriend Darya Lakshmi, the goddess of courage, you will gain the strength to face and overcome anything. My children should strictly follow all the instructions and directions given by their government and law enforcement officials. At the same time, pray intensely with a melting heart for God's grace. Our grandmothers used to say, take the medicine and chant the mantra at the same time. Similarly, in this circumstance, both our diligent effort and God's grace are equally needed. Every citizen should exercise the same amount of shraddha as a soldier serving on a battle. Shraddha means attention and alertness, serving on the battle line. My children, pray for the souls of those who have passed on and for the peace of mind of their families. 3 years ago, Amma felt an impending disaster looming ahead in 2020. 2 years ago, Amma developed a white flower meditation for world peace and divine grace to alleviate this. In it, it is said that what is coming cannot be completely averted and will have to experience some of its effects. Amma has explained this meditation technique, and we've been practicing it for the past 2 years, benefiting the world. Children, Amma requests everyone regularly practice this meditation once or twice a day for the benefit of the entire world. It's called the White Flower Meditation, Amma's White Flower Meditation. Everything exists in the form of waves or vibrations. In the last century, the French designed the Concorde, a jet that can fly at supersonic speeds. Its sonic boom was so powerful that its shock waves damaged buildings. Similarly, the sound of a song is transmitted in waves or vibrations. Everything exists in the form of waves or vibrations. The type of vibration generated by anger is different from that generated by a mother showing affection for her child, which is again different from that generated by love, and different again from that generated by lust. With the vibration of our prayer, along with our diligent effort, it may be possible to resist the virus. Prayer with sankalpa, or deep intention, does have an effect. There's a rhythm to everything in creation, an undeniable relationship between the entire universe and every living creature within it. The universe is like a vast, interconnected network. Imagine 4 people holding the 4 corners of a net. If it is shaken in one place, the vibration is felt throughout. Similarly, whether we are aware of it or not, all of our actions reverberate throughout creation, whether performed as an individual or as a group. That's why Amma repeatedly says we're not individual islands, but links on a common chain. Therefore, don't wait for others to change before you do. You can create change. You can create change on the outside by changing yourself inside, even if others do not. Change yourself on the inside. That creates change on the outside. Suppose a person living on the 10th floor of a building sees the ground floor on fire and hears a person staying there calling him for help. If he says, it's the ground floor that's on fire, it's your problem, why should I worry about it? It would be complete foolishness. The fire on the ground floor will soon rise upwards. In a similar way, someone else's problem today will become our problem tomorrow. Similarly, when the virus first surfaced in China, all of us thought it was China's problem, not ours. Eventually, didn't it turn out to be our problem? The question is not whether they control the disease or not, but how we tackle it. If we are alert and exercise caution and diligence, we will be able to protect ourselves and prevent disease from spreading. What should my children do? Imagine if we break our leg. We may have to stay in our room, sometimes for 2 to 6 months. We don't think of this as a burden because we know it's necessary in order for our leg to heal. Similarly, the isolation, sanitation, and extreme caution we have to practice now will help us gain strength to fight the virus. Those who have contracted the virus shouldn't be afraid. Just adhere to the quarantine and ensure that you don't spread it to others. Stay in your room. Similarly, if you develop any symptoms, inform the proper authorities and seek help. There are currently 3,000 people living in Amritapuri ashram. That's where Amma lives. There are people from many nations as well as Indians living here. In the ashram, we're strictly adhering to the government's regulations and not allowing anyone to come inside. Even if someone who lives here goes out, they're not allowed to return for many days. These rules were put by the government, and we have complied. These 3,000 people here have to be protected as well. That is why this rule was put into place. During this time, Amma is receiving her children who have not left the ashram. This is one time a year when the ashram residents get a chance to share their issues with Amma. Amma calls each person and listens to their problems of the year. Usually every year, Amma sets aside about 25 days for this. Following all the government guidelines, Amma comes out for daily meditation and prayer. The rest of the time is set aside for listening to the problems of the residents. In India, both central and Kerala state governments have been very alert and proactive in addressing the pandemic. That is why we have been able to resist it at least this much. This was in March. Let us pray sincerely and practice due diligence and caution so that it is contained and doesn't spread further. Let us protect and save ourselves. We ourselves are the light or darkness in our own path. We ourselves are the thorns or flowers on our path. There's always a limit to human effort. However carefully we may drive, a careless driver can crash into us. For anything to bear its intended result, the factor of grace is needed. A proper effort is needed first. But for it to succeed, we require grace. Prayer is essential to receive this grace. Now, my children have understood that our life is only in the present moment. Even our next breath is not in our hand. Our real lifespan is determined by how well we use the present moment, because that is where our life abides. Amma always says that my children have to know themselves. Know yourself and pray for the world with wakefulness, enthusiasm, and peace. Each day, sit in your room for some time and chant the mantra, Om Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. That is good to practice during these times. Om Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Finally, Amma has no words to express her profound appreciation and gratitude for the dedicated health workers all over the world who are caring for those affected by this virus. She simply bows down before their selflessness and attitude of service. May grace bless all my children. This was Amma. This was her message on March 23rd. That was in India, and that was this day. This was right when it started. At the time, you may remember, I spoke about how we were in for at least a couple months of intensity. And I knew that because Mars was going to be going through, we were going to have all these planets in Capricorn, at least for the next month and a half until around the middle of May. It was going to be very intense with the virus because Mars was going through Capricorn. Jupiter was soon going to follow behind. But Amma delivered this right as we were also getting this new moon in Pisces. You want to understand that great saints and gurus, they're tuned into the universal energies, of course. Whether they say it or not, it's not surprising that she gave this right when we had this new moon in Pisces. This is the great guru giving the great lesson for everyone to hear, and these encouraging words that we can get through it, that every vibration has an impact, that the main principle that she focused was courage, and also self-control and unity. But having courage, which means courage to get through it, to not be fearful and paranoid and triggered, have the courage to deal with what we're doing. And again, we have to have self-control and also unity, to be thinking of each other, regardless of what's going on, regardless of how others were looking at things. Unity. She talked about when you shake a net in one part of the world, it affects everywhere else. We thought it was just going to be in China. It's everyone's problem. We have to see it as everyone's problem. Again, it was said in March, but it was said at this time, but it's for this. It's a continual, it's a still an appropriate message. Because I know Amma and I know these saints and what they've been saying and what she's been saying. This was a literal part of a message that she had been putting forth, as she said in that message, for years, that she knew that 2020 was going to be a difficult year. Everybody who knows Amma and who's been around Amma also knows this. We've been hearing 2020, what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Trust me, as one of the astrologers that knows Amma and that goes to the programs, that's all I've heard for the last few years is, what do you think is going to happen in 2020? And I said, well, let's see. Amma said it's going to be something that's going to make us really have to wake up and reckon with the way we've been treating nature, reckon with the way we've been treating each other, destroying the environment, mistreating animals. And one thing affects everything. So you see that message came out at this time. At the same time, in fact, about a month later, Sri Ravi Shankar, you bring up, there was a blog post. It doesn't have the exact date, but it says that it was about 19 weeks ago, which would have been around the end of April, wrote this great post, which I'm going to read. One second. The first thing that I wanted to say, actually, before I get to this, is one of the main benefits, and you'll hear Gurudev talks about it in this blog post, but one of the main benefits that I also talked about right away was that it was going to, in many ways, even further expand the possibilities and bring us together in ways that haven't been possible before. I've always seen this as a benefit, as a blessing from the very beginning, that it's a difficult thing, hard to be sequestered and quarantined, but ultimately this was going to be something extremely beneficial for humanity, because we need to change what we were doing. The paradigm that we not just were on, but are on, is unsustainable. We cannot keep destroying the environment. We cannot keep destroying billions of land animals every year to eat them and kill them. And again, the Wuhan, whether it came from bats in a lab or in a cave, and these wet markets and this abuse of nature and animals, it's unsustainable. Not to mention flying, traveling all over the world, using resources as if they're just infinite. They're not infinite. And one of the great blessings is that not only were we able to, did we stop using internal combustion engines for a while, and we saw nature restore itself, the magical quality that happened. We saw, they got to see the Himalayas in India for the first time in a long time, right? They got to see, the waters running clear in Venice, and nature celebrating that all the people were home. All the people were home, not destroying everything for a month or two. Again, we didn't like it, but the rest of existence was ecstatic. Hooray! People are home. We can live in peace for a while. And again, but what that did besides that is it really opened up all of these possibilities for remote living, especially things like jobs and the job market, and people that could just work from home and really get a lot of our time back. But in addition, people like myself and people who are already equipped to be doing online teaching, online learning, had enormous benefit. And one of the things that happened with a Gurudev, with Sri Ravi Shankar Gurudev, is they began a worldwide meditation on the same on March 22nd. Sorry, let me bring it up. Let me bring up the chart again. It's hard to be jumping around a little bit here. I want to keep showing the charts though, because it's not just the same time. This is March 23rd. On March 22nd, let me go back here. March 22nd, Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar had a worldwide meditation that was online. It was global through like Zoom and I don't know if it was Zoom, but it was an online platform, global meditation. And by the second week, there were 4 million people that were attending live online meditations. 4 million people meditating at the same time all around the world. And again, it started right at this time. I said it at the time that the real power, we could sit here and cry and moan, but the real power of this is you've got Saturn in Capricorn, Mars exalted in Capricorn, and then by the end of that week, on the 29th, Jupiter went into Capricorn. So you had all of these planets in Capricorn from the end of March until the middle of May. And I said this is going to be an enormous opportunity to stay home and meditate and tune in. This is what Capricorn energy is about. And you can't ask for anything more than having the ruler of Capricorn there, which is Saturn, and the exalted planet there, which is Mars, which gives us the courage to do it. What did Amma talk about? Courage. She said the main thing is courage now. Main thing is courage and unity, and bringing that message of unity together, which again, her message was delivered on this new moon in Pisces, which really showed a lot of that unity as well. But the main thing she said was courage, forbearance, being practical and patient. These are the kinds of things that she talked about. She had a few other messages after that, and I remember one of the big ones was also patience. It was mainly courage and patience were the big things. Like, we know you're restless. She even said it in that message. We know you're restless and you want to get out, but you need to have patience and courage. This was the message, and it's still the message. We still need to have patience and courage. This is not finished. Why? And why are we all just jumping out of our skin? Because we don't have any patience. And because we're fearful, fear-based, we're triggered, and now looking for, uh-oh, my God, what does it mean? Uh-oh. And then we're finding teachings that are corrupt and following teachers, quote, teachers who are not Satgurus, teachers who are not, don't have the bigger picture. Listen, I don't know what teacher you're following, but I bet the teacher didn't predict in 2020 we'd be dealing with this. Okay, Amma did. Amma predicted it, and there's millions of people that can verify that. So if you're following all these other teachers, or the media, or a YouTube genius, or this or that, again, that says a lot about this fearful nature. And I hope that you realize that there are great teachers in this world, and every teacher is not the same. These Satgurus are plugged in to the ultimate reality. And you can see in this message, Gurudev, what Sri Ravi Shankar did was, again, not that he was timing it with the astrology necessarily, but these beings are an expression of the cosmic potential at any given time. And we can look at the astrology at the time that they do something to see what the real potential was. So Gurudev starting these massive online meditations at that time was totally in sync with the cosmic message. This is why within 2 weeks of starting his online meditations, within 2 weeks, there were like 4 million people joining in these global meditations simultaneously worldwide. Never seen anything like that. like I said, this is a great benefit of this time of being by ourselves, is to really tap into that. Now, I want to read Gurudev's words here. I'm sorry to be diverted, but I wanted to show the chart before I read the words, because his message is quite different. This was about a month later, I think. On this, there's not a date. It just says 19 weeks, which if we go back 19 weeks, it says it was 19 weeks ago. We go back 19 weeks, that was around the end of April. But he also did videos when it first came out, and some articles that also said very similar things. But this is what Sri Sri Ravi Shankar had to say when it started. One second, let me take another drink here. He says, the coronavirus pandemic has created a global crisis with far-reaching social, economical, and spiritual repercussions. Our resilience during these challenging times will be tested, not only by how we combat the spread of the virus, but also how we make the best out of the circumstance. While it is important to take this pandemic seriously, sorry, let me make this a little larger, and act responsibly, it is definitely not the time to panic. Beating the virus requires collective action. It's imperative that everyone follows the rules like staying clean, washing hands frequently, maintaining social distance. Initially, they might appear challenging, but they aren't hard to practice. If you observe, these mannerisms have been part of many traditional cultures. The ancient philosophy of yoga lays a great deal of emphasis on cleanliness, not only of the body, but also of the mind and its surroundings. The first personal ethics of yoga, or niyama, is about cleanliness, or shaucha. Shaucha, as enunciated in the Yoga Sutras of Maharishi Patanjali, advocates purity and cleanliness as a key foundation for yogic life. Shaucha, is, in its deeper sense, also includes avoiding unnecessary physical contact and intimacy. The self-discipline of eating healthy and chemical-free food, which keeps us clean within, is complementary to shaucha. It also includes the discipline to sleep enough, to work out, to meditate, and the like, anything that leads to purification of our system. Making asanas, pranayamas, and meditation an integral part of lifestyle can go a long way in boosting one's immunity and keep the coronavirus at bay. The most important contribution we can make during these tumultuous times is to isolate ourselves to reduce the possibilities of contracting and transmitting the virus. Stay indoors, avoid traveling and going to public gatherings or community feasts. I would recommend even avoiding congregational prayers and rituals. Meditation and mental prayers are far superior and much more effective than rituals. Take the imposed social distancing or self-quarantine as an opportunity to slow down and go inward. It offers you space and time to focus on yourself, to reflect and reset your goals, your roles and goals. It is also an excuse to break the monotonous pattern of fast-paced life and indulge in some right-brain activities like creative writing, cooking, music, painting, or learning a language. It's time to move beyond the scenery and find the lost seer. It's also time to strike a balance between rest and activity. One who is always in rest doesn't progress in life, and one who is always in activity misses the bliss of deep rest. Social distancing is not a punishment. Silence and solitude are potent means for personal growth and self-renewal. Many great works of the world have emerged out of solitude. Meditate more and use this forced solitude to improve your mental strength, creativity, empathy, and productivity. Now that you are getting to spend more time with your family members, listen to them, talk less, and avoid arguments. So far, India has done extremely well in combating the spread of coronavirus, but there is a lot more to do. During catastrophic events, people must care for and share with each other. The haves should resort to some austerity and spend savings on those who are in dire needs. I urge all those who can afford to take a pay cut and form endowments to take care of daily wage earners and low-income groups in their area so that the economic burden is shared by society locally. Let's reassure ourselves and others that there is enough humanity to take care of everyone. This is a temporary phase of uncertainty. Mankind has fought against and prevailed over such threats before. We've overcome epidemics like SARS, swine flu, and bubonic plague in the past. Be assured that we will overcome this one too. I request everyone desist from circulating unfounded information about the pandemic. While we need to be informed of what is happening, do not get obsessed with corona. Endless TV debates and mindless social media shares could add to the uncertainty and cause an upsurge of anxiety and panic. This was Gurudev in April. The coronavirus is definitely a catastrophe for the world, but it doesn't have to mean the apocalypse. Despite the dark clouds of gloom, silver linings are emerging, bright enough to bring hope. This is what we need to focus on. The stories of birds chirping again in Wuhan, or skies and water bodies clearing up as people stay indoors, or people opening up their hearts to provide solace to those who are in need, might not immediately compensate the losses brought about by the novel pandemic, but they do come as lasting reassurances of the good for the human race. For sure, this crisis will also leave the population more sensitized about cleanliness, personal hygiene, and healthy ways of life. Time is indeed the great healer. Let's give time with patience, courage, and compassion. And then there are links. So again, this article is linked below. And again, these are the words of Gurudev that came. It was about a month later. If I move this forward, about a month. I don't have the exact time, but this was when it was around this time. Like it was around the end of April. We probably had an exalted sun at that time. Venus was now in Taurus, and Jupiter had moved into Capricorn. And as you can see, we were already getting so much of the deluge of the sort of mind virus that we had to be careful of, which again, we could really see with the planets, with this Ketu in Sagittarius and Rahu in Gemini. And, one of the reasons I wanted to make this video, though, is just because, we have to be careful of the teachers and the teachings that we're following now. During this whole time, it seems like, we're being punished, that this is some kind of punishment, and, that we have to be afraid of, being controlled and whatnot because of all the domination structures that are set up in our world now. But again, we have to be very careful about who we believe, especially when, again, we don't really understand the bigger picture. And again, even we can speculate and theorize about all these connections, especially with the powers that be, and how, doing something now is just setting us up for this dark future that's coming, and be totally externalized around the whole thing and totally triggered. Notice none of these great beings talked about any of that. They weren't saying, now watch out, because, doing this is you're all going to get screwed up, screwed over by the government or whatever. They were like, look, just slow down, take your time, have courage, compassion, care for each other, follow the guidelines, and we'll beat it back. We've done this before. So, I also say this because many people don't have access to great gurus and great teachers. The other reason that I wanted to talk about this is because, there's a lot of people in the West who haven't been around these great saints. They haven't been around these great divine beings. They haven't heard or seen like just the beauty of their words and of their presence. And I want to just say, and I'm going to talk about what both Gurudev and Amma said on Gurupurnima, which is the divine, which is this day here, this Gurupurnima. This is the full moon of the Guru, and they also both had Gurupurnima messages. That was just a couple months ago. It was just about a month ago, and I'm going to share those in a minute. But again, just the thing is that so many in the West don't really understand why we would even why are they a saint or a guru, or what is that whole thing that you're doing? Why are these people any more important than anybody else, or why should I listen to them? Again, the thing to understand is that, especially in the Indian sense, or in all dharmic teachings, and in fact, all religions at their heart, and I'm not saying secular religions as their practice now, but on the metaphysical cosmic level, God or whatever you want to call it, never punishes. God is not punishing. This is a very Western concept that God is a punisher and a rewarder, like punishments, rewards. Do good and God gives you good. Do bad and God punishes you. That's a very Western concept. That's a Judeo-Christian, Abrahamic religion. I'm not blaming Christianity, but this is a very Western concept. People don't realize you're actually a product of Western ethics and values. And even again, when people think of God, or even these gurus or these teachers, there's something in our mind, as Westerners at least, that there's some kind of coercion, there's some kind of subservience, like, oh, you're worshiping God, and like there's some mental enslavement going on. And it's nothing like that, because the entire approach to spirituality is different from the Eastern perspective. God is the benevolent force of the universe that is always supporting you. God never punishes. We punish ourselves through our ignorance. We punish ourselves through our ignorance because we're attached to a separate identity that's false, because we're attached to an ego and we think that ego is our true self. We're always attached to this I, this small separate I, which is always fearful and afraid that it's going to die one day, which it is. And our entire false identity is propping up this lie that we are this separate ego. It's propping up this lie that we're just this little being and we need to struggle to survive. And so everything external is part of me and part of my world that I need to control or get my handle around or get my head around, or else it's going to devour me. Again, all of this is built on a false premise. This is why human beings are pretty neurotic, because our entire identity is built upon a shaky foundation that's not real. Again, this is very standard, like Vedanta or Indian thinking, which is you're not this little self. And it's that little self and that attachment to the ignorance that punishes you, not God. God never punishes you. We punish ourselves with our ignorance. And every time we get out of that, God is the thing that makes us, okay. That was the amazing thing. That's the amazing uplifting feeling. When you're around beings like Amma and Gurudev, you see it in action all the time, because they have transcended that game that we're still playing. They're not playing through the ego. This is why when you saw John Lewis hug Amma, what he did immediately was he started crying. He started bawling immediately, because it just blew him away that he was in the presence of this divine being that he has never, he's never encountered this before. He's never encountered a being so pure. And again, if you don't know, or in fact, even if you don't know that's what it is, which most of the time we don't know that's what it is, that is what it is that the purity in John Lewis's soul encountered the purity in Alma's soul. And I want to show the video again. I'm just going to play it. Again, you'll see. John Lewis thought he was just going to hug this little lady in a sari. I'm just going to hug this little lady, and watch what happened to him when he did. He goes to give her a hug. Nice little hug. Watch. In 10 seconds, he's bawling his eyes out. Because Amma is an emanation of pure divine love. He can't take it. He's like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. I had no idea this was going to happen. And again, it's an experience. And again, it doesn't mean that then, but this is the nature of God. The nature of God is as that divine love at the center and at the heart of the universe, but we're attached to this smaller self, to this ego. And then that ego punishes itself by limitations, limiting. I'm this limited thing. So, this is why these gurus always stress everything both of them said. Gurudev was so practical. Gurudev, Ravi Shankar, Sri Gurudev, was so practical in what he was saying. He's like, look, this is, this goes back to all of the yogic concepts of saucha, which is purity, cleanliness, doing the right, eating pure food, clear, clean living. Don't spread mind viruses around. Stay clear and pure, and also have courage and have patience. Again, they stress actions. It's always very practical things. Here's the practical things. Give some of your money away to people who don't have as much money. Again, Amma always talks about this. Charity, mercy, doing something, actions, not just words. Because we live in this ego lives in this world of ideas and words. And we mistake these ideas and these words for something, for actually doing something. And it is doing something. It is karma in our mind. But it's usually doing something to our mind that's not very healthy. We're just keeping the cycle going. And particularly now, in this Rahu time, with this Rahu in Gemini, it's really just a lot of ideas just spinning around, like in the spin cycle. So there's a lot of karma getting worked on this way. And, they stress these practical things for us to do. And, there's an example of how to really understand, karma in the mind and in our world. They say if you throw stones up in the air, don't expect flowers to come back down. If you throw stones up in the air, don't expect flowers to come down on your head. Right? If you do something, you're going to get that back. And so we need to be very careful about what we think and what we do. You have to be very careful about what are you following? What are you believing? And one of the things I've noticed is that this virus and these times have really brought out, they've just really magnified our deeper nature. A person who is naturally sort of gracious and inspired and inspiring has gotten more so that way. Not constantly, but overall, it's made the person more devoted, more devotional, more, it's made them cling to the feet of God even more. Those who are always kind of a little bit worried or paranoid or looking for conspiracies or looking to get triggered, this has made them much more so that way. And again, it's not to point fingers at anyone, it's to say notice, because the world is just a mirror. It's a mirror. It's here to provide contrast. It's here to show you who you really are. That's literally what the world is. It's just a mirror. And you're projecting your consciousness and your level of attachment onto it. And it's reflecting back. It's saying, yeah, that's who you are. It's just a mirror. It's neutral. And that includes the way people respond to you and whatnot. The thing to understand, especially as it relates to nature, is this is a collective karma that we're all paying right now. Because we've all treated nature a certain way. And again, this has been Amma's message. And again, I talk more about Amma because she's been my guru and I know her more, but I have enormous respect for Gurudev as well. And again, I'm going to get to their words in a minute, especially what they said about Gurupurnima, or at least what Amma did. And then there's a great video of Gurudev as well. But Amma has been saying ever since I've met her that nature is very agitated, that we keep destroying nature, that we should plant a tree, we should try to consume less, we should pay attention, because again, nature, it's just the same thing as if you throw stones up, you get stones down. Nature is the same way. We can't keep throwing stones up in the air of nature and expecting it to keep raining flowers down on our head. It has been. Nature has been extremely patient. Look at how we've polluted and destroyed nature, raped and destroyed our animals, destroyed all these animals, all of the factory farming and mindless consumption of living beings. We can't just keep doing this stuff. And nature is kind of bringing the stones down on our head a little bit. Nature operates through laws. Gravity is a law. speed is a law. Nature only has laws, natural law, but there's also spiritual law. And God operates through spiritual laws, but they're compassionate laws. They're laws of compassion, and they're laws of forgiveness and laws of truth. And this cycle that we're in right now, where nature is giving us back what we've given it, is a time for us to correct. And but within that, nature operates through laws and says, okay, you destroy everything, that all the things I've put in place to protect you from viruses. You've destroyed all of the things I've put in place to protect you from that. You've gone and invaded every species on Earth to eat it or exploit it. And then when the viruses that were meant for them escape and jump into you, this is just the law. It's not punishment. Nature doesn't punish. We punish through our ignorance. Nature just has laws that we adhere to. If you jump off a building, nature isn't going to punish you by using gravity to punish you. No, gravity is just a law. It just works. But God is different. God is merciful. God is the energy of love that's keeping all of it together. And these beings like Amma and Gurudev are embodiments of that. And then they refer us, they try to connect us, or they literally sort of connect us to their compassion through the laws. The immutable laws of the universe filtered through their compassion brings out enormous wisdom. Because they're an embodiment of nature, but they're also an embodiment of Dharma. Dharma is the spiritual law. Okay, nature operates through gravity and speed and momentum and all. God operates through Dharma. Righteousness, truth. And the Dharmic law is what I said earlier, that you're not just this limited being. You're a universal being. That's your true nature. If you're living out of alignment with that, anything is possible. You can spin out on any idea and think it's real. Then you'll wind up following teachers who don't really know what they're talking about either. They're just making things up. They don't know what they're saying. You're believing that. Now you're further and further and further away from the truth. Nature isn't going to punish you. Nobody's going to punish you. God's not going to punish you. You're punishing yourself because you don't understand the nature of the law, of dharmic law, of truth, of consciousness. You're attached to something, and you're getting triggered by fear and anxiety. And that's shown in the astrology. This is why we study astrology, because that's the possibilities of all these planets. The possibilities that we had back when we had this, when we had the, this is Gurupurnima message. So back when we had these, back at this time, when all this started, there's a lot of potential to just be paranoid and triggered here if we don't understand our true nature. If we don't understand our true nature and we're not connected to Dharma and purpose, all this planets in Capricorn, this Mars, Saturn, debilitated Jupiter, that's a bunch of triggering and fear and an opportunity to wake up. Like these great teachers said, here it is, folks. This is where we are. I've been saying it for years. This is what's going to happen. It's going to come. And now this is where you are, and this is what you need to do. Because here's the truth. But do we listen? Or do we just go, oh, no, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that, and go back to our ego and spinning out? So it's my hope that moving forward, we can all really benefit from the divine wisdom of these great beings, as I have been so lucky in my life. Even though I get paranoid and triggered and wondering and all like that, I don't get too far away from it because I go back, okay, yeah, this is what's going on. Through spiritual practices that I do, and just by having been in the presence of these amazing beings, what happens is, and again, one of the reasons it's the greatest blessing in the world to imbibe these great teachings, even if you can't do it in person, do it online. I have all these links below this video that people should be looking at now. These are the teachers you should be following now. You should be staying up with them. They're always doing updates. They're always talking about what's happening. They're always informing. That's who you should be studying and looking at for inspiration in these times. These great masters. And because I've been listening to the words of these great masters forever, when I see things that are just like, again, some YouTube spiritual teacher just making up a bunch of stuff that they're certain of now. Again, I'm not trying to insult people. I'm really not, but I don't know how else to say it. It's just, or I see people I care about a great deal who are just now gone into all of that. It's sad. And we've all seen this by now. We've all seen people that we love now just getting totally out of their mind right these days. Or maybe you're one of them. Just chill out. Again, it's not a criticism. You don't need to defend yourself. And again, hanging on to an ego like, well, I could say what I want. You can do all of that fine. You're not hurting me. It's not hurting me. It does hurt me to see it, but staying with bad teachings, it's just, again, it's the natural law. And again, it's all of our right when we incarnate to keep following limited teachings. It's totally within our right to follow and believe whatever we want. It's true. And it's going to have a result. It's called karma. How does it feel? And again, we've all seen the mind viruses like that Gurudev talked about. How does it feel when you read that stuff and you think all of that stuff is coming? I mean, literally, how does it feel in your heart? Is that the world you want to live in? Is that the thing that you want to be even fighting against? Do you really want to put that much energy fighting against something that's that dark if you're not even sure it's real? Or do you want to put time and attention into creating the beautiful world? The beautiful world that's there, that's open. There's an opening right now. This is an opening. And these great gurus are showing us how to step into the opening. We need patience. We need courage. We need compassion. We need empathy. We need to follow the directions to get through this. Eventually we'll get treatments and we'll get through it and emerge on the other side better for having gone through it. Then we can make adjustments to the way we treat the environment and other things. That's where we're at. We can get into the triggering about like, well, maybe all these other dark things are happening and just totally lose our mind and get hijacked. So we just need to be careful with that. And I want to go to the Gurupurnima messages because Amma had a great Gurupurnima message this year, and then Gurudev had. This was his video. I'm sorry, this was his video on, and I have this link as well. This was his video on the coronavirus lockdown 2 that was made on March 23rd. That you want to also look at. And so Amma's Gurupurnima message is this one here. It says, "You're in Amma's heart. Amma is also in you." This was from July 6th, 2020. It says, "Amma knows that many devotees are sad they can't be here today for Gurupurnima. We have to abide by the government rules when so many residents stay here. Amma has to ensure their safety as well. Only if we behave as model citizens will others behave properly too. Although many of you are outside of the ashram, children, you're in Amma's heart. Amma knows you're in her heart. Amma is also in you. In some countries, the corona death rate is decreasing, but we see that it is increasing in others. In India, the virus is spreading more rapidly now. My children should pray sincerely for everyone to have the discernment to control themselves and limit the spread by observing the restrictions. Unless we restrict ourselves, external restrictions from governments won't be effective. May the awareness of the need for this control arise in everyone. Look at the state of society now. Amma thinks only if we stay alive will we be able to lead a life. But to remain alive, some basic needs have to be satisfied. Food is needed. Only if businesses run and trade exchanges happen can we get food. Even in the spiritual life, the importance of food is stated. The Gita also mentions it. There are people who, after a certain stage of spiritual elevation, can live on air. However, the bodies of everyone else, including spiritual seekers, are made of the 5 elements. Even though in spirituality the mind is more relevant than the body, we need food to survive. Now, when the shops have started reopening and people have started to go buy things, chances are high that the spread of the disease will increase greatly. If the country's exports are stopped, many nations will run into huge financial crises. Small business owners, auto drivers and taxi drivers, construction workers, and other tradesmen all are facing extreme hardship now. We should be aware of all their hardships. In some countries, we heard that the first thing to sell out was guns. People bought guns because they wanted to make sure they would have enough to eat, even if it meant harming others. Also, stores ran out of food, grains, and other necessities because people started buying and hoarding them for months. They did it out of their fear, but many people were unable to get enough because a few bought everything in the stores. All of those lessons for us, all of these are lessons for us. They show that this is the way society is headed. The entire world revolves around the central point of compassion. It is sustained by this alone. This is seen in nature, where all creatures coexist and help each other survive in subtle and gross ways. As more and more plants and animals are destroyed and become extinct, we see how we are unable to get pure air, which in turn makes our bodies impure, pollutes our food, and so on. There's a limit to man's effort. You can see things do not happen as we want them to. They happen according to God's will. Perhaps this is nature's way of healing. Amma thinks that nature is healing itself, after all. The law of karma clearly states that we will get back only what we give. Good actions will give good results, while bad actions give bad results. Maybe that is what nature is showing us. We don't have any other choice. We have to put in the proper effort, and along with that, we have to pray. We are certainly trying to do the right thing, like planting trees, but we'll have to tune into the divine will as well. Amma has many children inside and outside the ashram who are working with compassion and love. We should also thankfully remember the doctors, nurses, hospital workers, policemen, and other people working on the front lines. Every day we see these people sacrificing themselves to help others with the disease. Many people are working hard with compassion to help others. The situation is bad. So my children, please pray intensely for everyone. Everyone should close their eyes and pray intensely. Chant at least 18 times, sincerely, meltingly, intensely. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. So again, Amma is making it very clear that beyond the right and wrong and the triggering of, again, just to even talk about issues like wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, or this one is right, this one is wrong, or this, it's headed to this paranoid thing, or it's not, or whatever the thing is that again, Gurudev cautioned against spreading these ideas that are certainly not real, at least not yet, no matter what we might think we've figured out. We're right here now. We're here now. The whole world is getting anxious. There are protests all around about not wanting to, again, keep wearing masks or doing these other things. We have seen what seems to be the thing that really pushes at least the virus back, which is, the distance, and probably in combination with a mask. The other things that are so open and that are so positive now that I've felt the whole time, again, not just about the work and reclaiming a lot of our time, but also even with the worldwide protests that happen around equality and Black lives, and here in the United States, a very extreme pushback against, things that were spoken of in the Confederacy, not just with monuments, but statues and naming bases after people that were, exchanged in extremely racist behavior and slavery from another time. Again, these aren't cures to anything, but they're a great first start to at least acknowledge and shift culturally to the next world that's coming. And that next world is coming. That's what's coming. And we should be hopeful. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful about it. I'm hopeful that as we get through this, we're getting through it towards what's next. And what's next is first of all, the shift of the nodes into Taurus and Scorpio, like I talked about a few days ago. But also, we have Saturn in Capricorn for a couple of years. It's really going to be working through and helping us transition and work through the last bits of these of these efforts that we need to make over the next few years. Again, one of the things to look at, this is the Gurupurnima chart. This is the Gurupurnima message. And again, a link below the video, I have the video to Gurudevs a Gurupurnima message. And you can see this on a Gurupurnima. This is the day when we have the full moon in Sagittarius. Again, it was right in Sagittarius. It was also a lunar eclipse that day. And it's right near Jupiter. And again, this is the day of the year that's most conducive for worshiping the guru or getting the guru's message and getting the guru's teachings. And as you can see, Amma was very clear that this is nature. This is the karma that comes from nature that we're having to live. And it's teaching us to have more respect for nature. You see, we have this Venus in Taurus here. But Amma was also very intentional to say, especially about the workers and the people that are keeping everything going now, to honor them. And, for myself, this has always been my perspective, at least especially with the COVID and as it relates to things like wearing masks or not, or this or that. My whole thing the way I come down on all of those issues isn't a matter of, does it really work? What's the scientific proof behind whether or not putting on a mask is helping or spreading or not spreading or whatever? It's basically, I do it more as a courtesy to the people that don't have a choice, that have to work in stores, that have to be out there. It seems like every public health worker that I've heard from has all said, please wear masks, please socially distance, please do that, because we're here trying to take care of this. People in stores, people that have to be out, I think they appreciate when someone comes in with the mask on in case it does help. I think it probably helps at least a little bit. I don't think it hurts. And so, again, that's always been my perspective, naturally, but certainly because Amma and Gurudev reinforce this idea to follow these guidelines. Particularly, Amma really doubles down on the compassion for the people that are out there, the frontline workers, the people that have to work, people that have to work in the stores. Many of them don't make a lot of money, don't have good health care. They don't want to get sick any more than anyone else wants to get sick, and they get a lot more exposure than I do. Because I go out and do that, I got to put a mask on for a half an hour at the most, and then I come home. They got to sit there and work 10 hours a day with thousands of people in their face or something. I do it as a courtesy, not as a political statement. If other people are different, okay, I try to respect that as well. I think that's one of the biggest things, the most important thing we need to do is just respect each other's right to do what we're doing. And if people follow their heart and their compassion, they'll, hopefully find it in their heart to do what they think is right. And I'm sure they are. But again, I wanted to just do this because I think it's important to hear what these great teachers have said. And again, this is Gurudevs' message on March 23rd. It was pretty short. It was harder for me to find some of Gurudev's messages. I apologize that it wasn't as much, but it was actually very clear. He said he was talking about really coming together on this lockdown. And again, what he wound up doing was really quite remarkable, because while all this started right around this time, April, and this time from the end of March until the end of April, and since then, Gurudev has been leading these massive online meditations with millions of people meditating simultaneously online. Again, this is a mass movement, huge, massive positive time now. Very positive time now, if you see it that way. If you can see it that way. I've always felt it that way. When it first happened, I was hoping that that we would be able to, again, be mature as a species and like just nail this thing and get it handled and really get down and flatten the curve and have it like kind of stay there and then ride it out through the summer. Most countries in the world did do that, at least at first, at least in developed countries. The US never really flattened it, and then we've been the worst. But even now in Europe and in other countries now, it's starting to make a resurgence again. So again, my hope is that we all get the great lessons of this time. And I think there are so many, and I want us to get them. I want to do my best to try to convey them. And, please keep your eyes and mind and heart alert and vigilant to, again, the mind viruses and the ungrounded, unhealthy thinking that takes you out of your heart. When you come across these kind of teachings or these kind of guides that are guiding into some ungrounded, dark future, how do you feel? How does that make you feel? That maybe that's possible. And if it feels that way, ask yourself, do I know this is true? Do I really want to feel this way? And also ask yourself, why am I even gravitating toward this unless I do want to feel this way? Because again, one of the things about gurus and teachers is we find the guru that resonates with our mind. Everything is a projection, including our gurus. If we're finding teachers and teachings that say all these ungrounded dark fantasies and we're like, yeah, that's it, it's because we already believe it. We're ready to get taken on that ride. And that's going to have its effect. And be careful of that. Make sure you say, is that true? Is that real? Are they saying anything that's not real? Anything that's not true? This is the part that hurts me when I see friends and people that I care about on these trips and engage with that kind of thing. I see so many things that like those teachers or leaders or whatever they are saying that are so not just provably false, but so damaging and so wrong. I mean, factually wrong. And so again, we live in an era now, especially if we go back, this is the last thing that I'll say, to this Jupiter and Sagittarius, Rahu and Gemini time that we're living in now, where we're so like ready to throw away everything that we've believed and all of our beliefs are getting churned up. And Rahu and Gemini is saying, okay, and I want to get new answers, new solutions, new ideas. And we could be just kind of throwing anything at the wall. But that also means that we can be throwing this at the wall. And the reason I'm talking about these things now and these great spiritual teachers and these great spiritual leaders is because I think there's many people who have not been exposed to these great beings. And I want to expose some people to these great beings because I think there are many people who, especially in the West, who have not been exposed to these great teachers. This is what a Mahatma is. This is a Mahatma. Mahatma means great soul. And these are Mahatmas. And again, I'm not a Mahatma. I'm not a great soul. I appreciate if you like my videos and stuff, but sometimes people, they ask me, are you a spiritual teacher? You're my spiritual teacher or this, that. I'm not a spiritual teacher. I'm an astrologer and I have some good information that can help you, that can help show you things. But these are spiritual teachers. These are spiritual masters. Read their words, imbibe their teachings. Come here and listen to me talk about astrology and help you understand things and learn and study. That's also a great thing to do with your mind because your mind is curious and your mind wants to understand how it all works. And it's fascinating. And I've learned this and I love explaining it. And I'm good at it. I understand how this works. I can explain these things and help you enjoy that and really learn and understand. But as far as spiritual teachings go, these are spiritual teachers. These are the people you should listen to when you're thinking about where I put my heart and my devotion and what's the worldview that I'm working for? What's the answer? What's the solution? What are the practices I need to be doing? These are the people. Amma, Gurudev. There are others. There's but these are two of the most famous living masters now. These are the great teachings and teachers you should be listening to. And I think everybody is well-meaning. And when I talk about other teachers who are saying things, I'm not trying to insult people. I'm really not, but there's no other way to say it. You just have to say it. I think people are well-meaning. They're trying to help others. And that's their paradigm of truth and whatnot. So all respect to that, that's fine. But again, we also, we as teachers, we owe a certain amount of integrity there. And when I see people that are saying things that, again, they're not true, they don't know, they just making things up that sound good, and yeah, they sound good, but it's not like this. It's not like these Mahatmas who just melt your heart with their absolute purity of consciousness that can bring a grown man to tears in 10 seconds just because of the purity of their heart. That's a great Mahatma that can just, again, melt your heart in 10 seconds because there's so much purity there. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. And I want to expose people to these great gurus and these great teachings and these great teachers, especially now. We really need them. We really need to drink from the purest streams possible. We're in these moments now, and we're not here to waste our time and attention. Again, why drink from a dirty vessel when you can drink the cleanest, most purest nectar there is? Why? Why would you? None of us would. So anyway, if this was helpful, please share it with others. And again, I appreciate your time, and you have a great one.